Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt Francesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, High Lift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt Francesco. And so for an owner that spent, 30, 40 years building their brand, sometimes the thought of what they call retirement, it can be terrifying because they don't know who they are without their business and their shop. So really that's what this episode to identify is really that fear of the unknown. So think about this. You've spent 40 years building a legacy. What happens that Monday morning after you've handed over the keys, whether it's to your kids, whether it's to your key employees, whether it's to an outside buyer? And I think, again, I've talked in many, many podcasts about the emotional aspects and sides of a transition or an exit. And why many owners also sabotage their own sale because they're not ready to let go. I mean, I've seen, I work with a very prominent M&A person in the collision industry. And one thing that she's told me is she's had a lot of people that have come to her and got letters of intent and then all of a sudden just backed away. All right. And this happens a lot in the industry. I get a lot of owners that come to me and we start planning, but all of a sudden they freeze up because, again, they've never really identified who am I without this business, because it's been something that they've built. And so, I think, basically identifying first off a personal vision for what you want your life to look like after the business is really a key. And, part of our process is we want to help you to do that. So we'll really start to kind of go through, we'll almost do like a time management survey and says, okay, let's assume you're not in the business. What would you do with your time? And I think it's a great exercise because most people have never really thought about that. And how would you spend your time? And sometimes when you've got shop owners that are burned out and they just want out and it's like, what do you want to do with your time? Oh, I'm going to go golfing. Well, think about this. How often can you golf? Even if you golf 5 days a week, okay, at 18 holes a day, which is a lot, okay, that's only 20 hours out of a 168-hour week. So there's still a lot of time that's to be able to fill in. And, it's interesting. I subscribe to some stuff from one of the exit planning institutes, which is actually called the Exit Planning Institute. And one of the things, every year they do a study of business owners that have left their business. And this is what's really interesting. 75% of business owners regret selling their business after the first year. And so people ask, well, that's strange. Why? And really what it comes down to is they've never really identified who they are or what they're going to do after the business. I mean, I was at a show in Chicago last year, and I was invited to dinner by a number of the board members of the association who were shop owners. And we were talking, and one guy was sitting across the table from me, and he was telling me he sold his shop the last year. And he said, he goes, he did some traveling and some things, but he goes, and then all of a sudden I was just like, I didn't know what to do with my time. And I was like, and all of a sudden he had this regret. And I was talking to him about the process that we follow. And he told me, actually, he goes, I wish I would have met you a year ago before I did all this, so I could have identified what my next chapter of my life was going to look like. And it was actually funny because at the show, he was my greatest advocate. I bet he handed out about 15 cards of mine. So I think that's really is defining what your next chapter is going to look like, And again, it's not just about stopping, it's about shifting to a new mission. One of the things I love about the collision industry is that people are passionate about it. And there's many, many shop owners who exit their business, but get involved in another aspect of it, whether it's in consulting, whether it's helping shop owners to navigate the whole, consolidation landscape that's out there. Maybe it's in working with organizations on training techs, things like that. There's all kinds of different things. And so it really amazes me how many people are still doing stuff within the industry, even though they've sold their shop. But you've got to be able to identify that and what's really passionate. A great example, it was actually one of my very, very early collision shop clients who had a son that was in the business and this key guy and was always kind of thinking about that transition. But he really just couldn't kind of figure out where he fit in. And we finally helped him to identify that he loved the business. He just didn't want to do the day-to-day stuff. And what he really loved was being the 50,000-foot guy and helping, how can we better affect our employees' lives, our community's lives, and also how to mentor his son and the key guy to be able to take the business to the next level. And so that's what they're doing is it's a transition, but he's still maintaining a seat on the board as chairman of the board, or at some point he'll probably be just chairman emeritus. And but still being actively involved because that's what he's passionate about is developing culture, developing his employees, really kind of creating a better life for everybody that's involved, not only in his life but as his community. And so I think that's really a key thing. And if you're a younger owner, I think these things are really something to think about, especially if you're like at a point where it's like, well, maybe I'm not of retirement age, but what do I want my life to look like when I get to that point? And start building it now. The sooner you start building it, the better off you're going to be. And that's why, we do a lot of what I like to call owner-based planning, where it's not necessarily just figuring out how we're going to do the exit and putting a plan in place for that, but how to basically build the business to achieve that long-term goal. And it's interesting. I think when you have that vision that's out there, even if it's a 5 or 10-year vision that's there, it gives you something to look at, something to get excited about. You got a purpose for why you want to get up in the morning and be able to just keep driving business and do the things that we do. Because without that, we just get burned out. And I think that's why a lot of shop owners are burned out. They see the light at the end of the tunnel and it's an oncoming train. And we want to make it something that's much more positive. So anyway, I think the key takeaway in all this is really trying to help to figure out what do I want my life to look like 5, 10, 15 years from now, even while I'm building, because that's going to help us to identify how also you want to best build the business. And so we're here to help you with all this. We're here to help you to quarterback all of these things, to help you to bring in the top professionals that you're going to need to be able to execute this vision, and just help you to create the life and lifestyle that you want for not only for yourselves but for your family, your employees, and your community. So hope you got some value in that. If you like what you're hearing, say, hey, I want to talk to you about my personal situation. Go to my website. It's highlifefinancial.com. Click on the Let's Talk button up on the top right-hand side. I give everybody 30 minutes of my time, no cost, no obligation, just to talk about your situation, see where we may be able to help. And if you like what you're hearing on here, please give us a 5-star review. That way, we'll move up in the charts, hopefully to get more great content out to more and more people. So again, thank you so much for listening. Reach out if you have any questions. Take care and God bless, and we'll see you guys the next time. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
All information is obtained from sources deemed reliable but not guaranteed. No tax or legal advice is given nor intended. Content provided herein or on our website should not be construed as an offer for investment advice or for securities, insurance, or other investment products. Investments involve the risk of loss and are not guaranteed. Consult a qualified legal, tax, accounting, or financial professional before implementing any investments or strategy discussed here. High Life Financial is a DBA for Francesco Financial Concierge, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided through Cornerstone Planning Group, LLC, an independent advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission.